Welcome to the Chief's Garage. I'm Eugene. Thank you guys for stopping in. Today I'm working on the E7TE heads, and I know guys, I know this question is going to come up, so let's address that up front. Why would anyone put any time into a set of E7TEs? They have small valves, they have restrictive chambers, they're a ton of weight, they're not performance. There's no way that you can really make stock, Fox body EFI heads flow. It is true. Now, unless your David Vizard DV is really good at, getting power from places that, you wouldn't imagine, but it's just not there. When it comes to E7 stock heads, you'd be better off to just go out and buy yourself a set of even cheap offshore cylinder heads that were machined here. I mean, for $1,200, $1,300 for a pair, or maybe even a little less. If you look in the right spots, you can come up with something that's just going to outflow them. It's just the performance is not in these 7 heads. But because our desire and goal for my Fox body has always been that the original engine would go back in at some point, that's why we're going to reuse them. Now, we're going to do some things to improve them, and I'm going to show you guys what I'm doing to do that. In the previous video, we talked about what this so-called Summit Soldier was going to be, and we're going to take the original engine, we're going to freshen it up, we're going to put a better cam in it, and we were basically going to put it all back together with Summit parts and send it. Well, as you see in the previous videos, we're not going to be able to do that. The crankshaft is in some questionable condition where we'd have to go in and actually, grind the crankshaft. We knew from the start that we were going to have to go 30 over with the block. Block's already been prepared. I've got it all sitting here in the corner. It's ready to go to the machine shop. And because it's going to be 30 over, it kind of changed our direction. We knew we weren't going to use the stock, connecting rods, because they're stock and they don't have the strength that we were looking for, because this is going to be a boosted application when we're done, even though the pistons for the E7, the 87s at 2 through 93s were basically forged. We can't use any of that either because it's just 4.0 bore, and we're going to be at 4.030 when we're done here. So with all of that said, we still want to use the E7 heads. Now, I've watched a couple of videos with Richard Holdener, and I've watched, different guys take these stock heads and do some modifications to where they were able to get power out of them. Our goal for this is, 100 horsepower over stock, which I think we can do, especially because it's going to be boosted, which would make that, 100 horsepower relatively simple. But we've already got a 306 in the car that I built, for this aluminum Pro Max headed 175s on it. It's got a, comp cams, extreme energy 264. It's running a 70 millimeter throttle body. This car in its stock trim makes more than 1 horse, per cubic inch. So I would imagine that it's somewhere around 330 to 350 in crank horsepower. We're going to do a little bit better than that with this build, because we're going to increase the stroke by about 0.250. So when we're all done, the original stock engine will have a 331 rotating assembly. Even though we're using the stock E7 heads, you can do some math in that and come up with a much better torque number. I chose 331 for the crank angle, and I think that this is an experiment that I'm excited to see, and I'm glad to bring to you guys. And thank you all who watched my previous videos, and for those who have liked and subscribed, guys, I appreciate you. I'm going to see what we can do with this. It's an adventure. It's something for us to take a look at. I know that there are guys out there who may not have all the funds to be able to go out and just buy another set of heads. Or if you're just trying to freshen up your stock, engine, I think this is something that'll help improve the performance of what you have. And it's what we got, guys. Back in the day when these cars came out in 1979, I was around. I was driving then. I didn't see very many of them on the road, but one of the nostalgia things that I want from my Fox body is to bring it back to that era where these things ruled the streets. And for most of us, a lot of the aftermarket things that you see now were not available. Guys were going out. If you had the funds, you do everything you could to get that Paxton, which probably only added about maybe 80 horsepower to these on top of the stock to 225. So this isn't a race car. We're not trying to go there with it, but what we are trying to do is to drive up to the cruise end with it chopping like you would have heard back in the day, and open the hood and show someone that you got boosted power. And with the exception of the Grand Nationals, these things rule the streets. That's what we're going for. You're not going to be able to compete with a Coyote with these guys. That's not what we're trying to do. But what we are trying to do is come up with sound engineering that guys can put into their cars. I mean, you could go and pull your E7 heads and just use these simple techniques that I'm going to use to get another 20, 30, possibly even 40 if you're good at this horsepower out of what you got. So come along with me. We're going to go back into here in the shop. I'm going to show you what we got going on. Let's get after it. So these are the original E7TEs, and one of the reasons why most of us don't recommend that anybody try to modify these or use them because they're just not performance heads. If you look closely inside of the exhaust, you'll see that it has this little hump in the inside. That little dark spot there is the thermactor hump, and this is put in so that you could have your EGR system work with these heads for smog control. It's an obstruction. It's not something that adds to performance at all. It's just quite the opposite. And anyone who works on these will tell you that the first thing that you have to do is try to modify that and get rid of them all, and just to get the heads to flow a little bit better. So what we've done is, in order to be able to use these in the manner that we want to use them, is we've removed that. If you come on this side of it and you take a look in the exhaust and the intake ports, you can see they're quite restrictive. The E7s have a big chamber, small valve. They're just not performance heads. You can do a lot to these, but they're never going to perform like a set of offshore aluminum heads with 2.0 valves and 1.6 exhaust. You're not going to get there with these, but they are original to the engine and they're a part of this build plan. Let's take a look over here at what we've already done with the other one. So basically all I've used is a set of burr tools. You'll need one that's kind of round on the end, and that's going to help you to get into some areas. It's got a lot of flat there. You're going to need one that's a little sharper so you can get in some of the tighter radiuses. We're using some sand rolls, some cross rolls here. You can use different kinds of grinders for this. I'm just using a small pneumatic grinder because of course I have a big tall compressor there in the corner, but you could do this with a drill if you take your time. A couple of different ones that you can get in different angles that'll help you. And as you can see, looking into this cylinder head, I've gone in, let's see if I can do this without blinding you guys with all of the shiny finish that's in there. I've removed the thermactor that's in there. It's gone. And up in the upper areas of this, we've polished it all the way through. So I know that's a little glary, but if you guys could see, the improvements on these is something that you would want to do if you want to try to do something like this. They're not going to flow like an as cast aluminum head, but what it does do is it opens these heads up to a better performance. And there's a couple of different guys out there, and of course I'm not David Vizard, so DV could take these and make them flow like a set of Renegades. We're just not at that level. And that's not the level of performance we're trying to get out of these. What we really want from these heads is to allow them to breathe a little bit better so that they could be used in this project. We're gonna apply some good old 7th grade science to how we get to power. If you read these, they probably flow about 160 CFM at best. So if you did the math with that, even at, making about 2 horsepower per CFM, we still are kind of short on the mark of trying to get these to be around, 1.2, 1.3 horsepower per cubic inch. So that's where we're at with these. So we're going to continue. I've done some work on the bowls on these. As you can see, I've polished the bowls on the exhaust. We're not going to do a lot of work on the intakes, and I'll spin this around for you in a second. I have to turn the camera off for a minute, but show you that on the intake, one of the things that you want with your cylinder heads is you want the runner for the intake to be smooth, but not too smooth, because one of the objectives is, because this is a multi-point fuel injected engine, we want that runner to help mix the fuel air mixture as it makes its way to the combustion chamber. If you make your runners on your intake super smooth, it doesn't help with mixing the air fuel mixture. And so you need some roughness. I'm trying to remove most of the casting flash. And let's get a different angle. Hold on for a second. Okay, I'm back. So from this angle, I'm going to shine a light in here to see if that helps you guys to see a little bit better. What I've done is I've gone into the runners for the intakes, and I've removed all of the casting sand look that you have when anytime you mold steel. There's going to be some areas in there that the finish is basically matches the sand that was inside of that. So I've gone in and taken most of that out, but I haven't used a sand roll in this. I just basically got rid of the high spots. Air as a fluid is going to hit all of those little areas in there, and they're going to slow and restrict it. So I basically went in and took a lot of that out, hoping that that will help me to let things flow a little better, but at the same time, still have the ability to create some mixture there for our air fuel mix as it makes its way through. Like I said, guys, these have small valves. The performance of these is limited. Now, we know that at some point, the whole objective for this build is it is not going to be naturally aspirated. It's going to get some boost, and the cam that we've selected for this setup is going to help with that. The other piece of that science project equation is in that box right there, and we're going to get to talking about that later. I've already gotten parts for the valves themselves, and you can see there's our trick flow valve springs that we're going to put on these. We're going to lap all the valves in. We've already got some other components. The rocker arms are already in. We've already selected the cam. We'll talk about that later. And new cam bearings that I will put in the block. The block is in this plastic bag over here. And the shop's kind of a mess now, but that's okay. And the block is ready to go out to the machine shop and get machined. And what we're going to do is, inside of this box, and we'll talk about that later, is the new rotating assembly. And in our previous video, we talked about why we're going with a new rotating assembly. So this is where we are for now. Today's project is to continue working on the cylinder heads. Going to do a little bit more bowl work on the intakes here just to smooth that out. This head we haven't started on yet, but as you can see in the inside of this, we're going to narrow down the valve guide bosses a little bit here. We're going to clean up casting slag that's inside of the exhaust ports. Every little thing that you can do with these will actually help, and by removing some of that that's in there, that's going to help it to flow. These heads had a valve job done on them about 2,000 miles ago. I've looked at the seats, the valves, everything looked good. So I'm just going to take some time to clean all of that up, There are some edges around here that we're going to remove because in boost, some of these little sharp edges here around the shroud of the exhaust valve can become hot spots, and that'll create detonation. So we don't want that. We're going to clean that up. But what we don't want to do is, because this is already a large cylinder chamber, we don't want to do very much here that's going to increase that volume more. That will play into our overall compression ratio when we're done. So these were from the factory, somewhere between 62 and 64 cc combustion chambers, and we don't want to mess with that. These heads have been resurfaced when they were done, so I would expect that the volume for these is just a little bit less than that. But we need to break some of these sharp edges here around the edge to get that out, and we're going to do that with a sand roll. And we're going to put these back together. I'm going to set the valve spring height, and we're going to send it. So guys, that's where we are for now. I appreciate each and every one of you who've logged in and who've been watching my videos. Thank you for subscribing. I would ask your indulgence, if you haven't subscribed, that you hit the subscribe button, that you would throw us a like and ask questions, guys. I love that the questions that I get. I just enjoy answering them. And I look forward to any of you guys who have tips, because I can tell you, after, 40 years of working on, cars and machinery, no one has all the answers. We're learning something from each other every day. I'm glad to put these out there and hope that it inspires someone else to get out in your garage and see what you can't do with your own hands. You don't have to have unlimited budgets on what you do. Take what you got. You guys throw out the ideas. We'll do the mods. Let's see what we get in the end. Thanks for watching. Get out there and build something.